Good morning to anybody on the West Coast. Good afternoon to anybody on the East Coast. And if you're listening to this recorded at a later date in the evening, we hope it's a wonderful one that you're having. And we're sorry you didn't get a chance to join us live for this information we're going to share. Thank you for joining us for 15 big Facebook mistakes and how you can avoid them. Our guest is Jimmy Mackin. He'll be joining us shortly. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to introduce to you the sponsor for today's call, the reason we were able to bring this call to you, and that is Teresa. Teresa, say your last name for us.
Balian.
Balian. I'm going to get it right one of these times. Teresa Balian is with Mid-Island Mortgage, and she's got this great accent you're going to love. Some of you are going to say, what accent are you possibly talking about? And some of you are going to be sitting out there attempting to hear what Teresa's got to say to you. But Teresa, let me turn the mic over to you for a moment, and let me say welcome, and tell us a little bit about Mid-Island Mortgage and what you can do for us.
Well, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. My first slide today is Mid-Island Mortgage, difference, faster turnaround times. Mid-Island Mortgage is very unique from the other lenders. Mid-Island Mortgage is closing loans in a 2-week time frame, opposed to the other lenders that are taking 6 to 8 weeks or longer to close a loan. So I think that's a great niche for Mid-Island. We're giving pre-approvals within 30 minutes. Regular approvals from underwriting within 24 to 48 hours, and commitment letters within 72 hours. Next slide. The next slide is the Mid-Island difference, common sense underwriting. Mid-Island Mortgage has a great FHA niche. Our realtors really love this program. It's FHA under 580 FICO score. A lot of lenders are doing FICO scores and stopping at 620. So again, don't turn these borrowers away. Please contact me. And again, it's common sense underwriting with the low FICO scores between 580 and 540. Next slide, the Mid-Island difference, service. Again, we are not a large bank. We are a small bank, so we can dedicate our time to you and your buyers. And we also are a hands-on customer service lender. Mid-Island Mortgage processes their loans in-house as well as underwriting in-house also, which makes us able to close your loan within a 2-week time frame. The next slide, Mid-Island difference, much more. These are the programs that we have to offer. Mid-Island Mortgage is a direct lender. We've been in business since 1959. We are the bank. Again, FHA is mentioned up there with the low FICO scores. We do have the mass housing product. This is a first-time home buyer program for Massachusetts buyers only. The Home Path program, a Fannie Mae program. There's our fast turnaround time again for closings. It's 2 weeks. Again, because we have in-house processing and underwriting. Our rates are very competitive with Bank of America and Wells Fargo. We service 95% of our own loans. Therefore, your borrowers will be getting a mortgage statement from Mid-Island Mortgage. We also have the DU Refi Plus program. This is a refinance program going up to 125% loan to value. We also offer regular conventional, FHA you've heard about, VA, 203K commercial, and as well as reverse mortgages. We're licensed in the following states listed, and we're also licensed in other states as Florida, as far down as Florida. Those aren't mentioned in this slide because I'm not licensed there. I'm only licensed in the states mentioned. My contact information is listed below, so feel free to call me, email me, any loan scenarios you have. That would be great.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Teresa. We appreciate you helping bring us this event today. Thank you very much. So with that being said, I would like to now bring on the man who we're all here to really hear from, the guy who's going to bring us some amazing information, follow that up, and we want to thank Teresa for being able to bring this webinar to everybody today. Jimmy, are you out there for everybody?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Chad. You know, before we jump into the presentation, I wanted to, just say, I wanted just to reach out to Teresa and say, congratulations on actually doing this session. I know she was really nervous to actually do the webinar, and I've been there before. Holding my first webinar, how nerve-wracking that can actually be. So, you did great. So, and thanks again for sponsoring us, because this is just a fantastic session we're going to have today.
Well, we are glad that we have people like that who have provide these opportunities for us Jimmy so that we can bring this information to everybody. And lots of people saying thank you to Teresa. So I've left her contact information up there. Hopefully you've grabbed her phone number or her email. But let's jump into things now, because we all know Jimmy brings us about 12 hours of information that he's going to jam-pack into 1 hour. So say hi to Jimmy, everybody. Type it in for us. Let me know that you know how the control things work and all that. Again, no specific hashtag for today's webinar. Just jump on in and tag Jimmy all over Twitter. Post on his wall. Let everybody know here we are. Jimmy, they're all sending love from all across the country to you. We know it's hard for you people. You know, Patriots aren't winning. The Red Sox are out for the year, and hockey's only starting. So we know it's hard for people who are in your area of the country. But let's get to the information that we're here for today. And there's a little randomness going on right now, Jimmy.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is like becoming a tradition here, Chad, where you try to insult me before we start any session. But you know, so let's dive into this, because you know we get about 40 or 55 minutes left in the session. I really want to get through all the material today. Randomness. When I think of why we fail, why we struggle with social media to actually generate business, one of the biggest issues I see is we just perform these random acts of social media, that we're just out there doing random things. And you know, one story I want to share with you, and Chad, you want to jump over to the next slide here for me, is a story of Bruce Swedell. Now, he was written up in a recent Inman News article, which he was talking about essentially, you know, how he relies on traditional marketing right now, and how, you know, he hasn't closed a single deal through Twitter, even though he's been on there for about 16 months. Now, this wasn't, you know, particularly interesting to me when I saw this, because there's a lot of realtors who haven't closed a single deal through Twitter or through Facebook or any of that. What was fascinating about this was the fact that Bruce had over 135,000 followers. So I just thought to myself, because I have, you know, that's literally 100 times more than I have. It's, you know, 10 times more than Chris Smith has. And I thought to myself, how can somebody with that large of a network not close any deals? So I actually immediately dove into Twitter. I jumped over to the stream, and I began to look at his tweets. And this is what I saw. Would you have one of your fingers surgically removed if I guaranteed immunity from all major diseases? Now, this is, you know, we all have sort of random tweets, which is fine. And then I went to the next one here, Chad, if you want to jump on to the next slide. Would you like to have a child much more intelligent and attractive than yourself? And I was thinking to myself, this guy has 135,000 followers, and this is what he's tweeting. And to me, this is one of the major problems with our marketing online, is that we're blowing it with just not actually taking the time up front to have some structure, some plan in place to actually connect with consumers. And this is the question I'd like to ask the audience. Bruce is a realtor. If you saw this coming across your stream, would you buy a house from Bruce? Would you use this guy as your realtor? And I'm sure the answer is of course not, right? It's absolutely. So here's the next slide here. Here's how you can avoid what I call RASMs. Some people call them RAMIs. I call them RASMs. They're called random acts of social media. Is there a plan? Is it funded? Now, when I say funded, I don't mean are you going to invest money. I mean, are you going to invest time? Are you blocking time off throughout the day or throughout your week in which you actually can dedicate to marketing yourself online? Next, what's your implementation strategy? How are you actually going to execute on the plan that you laid out? Then moving on, measurements. How are you going to measure success? Now, this is really important. I'm just going to pause for just a second here to emphasize this. When I say measurement, I'm not talking about getting more fans. I'm talking about things like real connections with real people, real relationships. How are you measuring these things? You know, how are you measuring the people you're reaching? How often you're reaching? Reach and frequency. All these things are really important. And you want to lay these things out before you actually begin to execute some plan. And unfortunately, what I see a lot of, Chad, is a lot of people spend a lot of time on Facebook, but they spend it on their personal profile. They don't spend it on their business pages. They don't spend it on their, you know, building up their network that way. So, you know, again, focus on measurable gains. Next, your clearly defined objectives, what it is you're actually trying to accomplish through Facebook. And for me, you have to write it down. You can't just say, okay, I want to get 10,000 fans or I want to get more business. That's too vague. You want to set actual measurable goals and clear objectives. And finally, who is accountable? And this is really, again, if you're a broker and you're managing many different agents and you're having someone else manage your online presence, you know, make sure you have someone accountable for this stuff. If you're doing it yourself like me, you know, obviously you're accountable for yourself. So again, plan it, measure it, execute it, and obviously make sure you're held accountable for your actions.
So, Jimmy, that's some amazing information. I mean, forget whether I stay for the next 45 minutes or whatever. You've already given me something, because now I know I need to be avoiding these random acts of social media, which is, I think, a great term we should all be using. The question that I'm seeing from people and that I'm asking, and some of them want to know about tracking results, and I know we'll get into all of that for you as the call goes. You're talking that we should all make sure that not only do we have our personal profile, because we set that up to get onto Facebook, that we have a fan page as well for ourselves, and we've got goals, we've got our implementation, we've got our plan and our objectives for our fan page, yet I can share the things about my lifestyle. That stuff can go on my personal page a little more. I need to know what my goals of my fan page are. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah, and for everyone who's confused about what to actually post to Facebook, we're going to dive into that in just a few minutes here. But yes, essentially, here's my feeling on it, Chad. It's this simple: is that I polled our audience recently, our community, a few weeks ago. I said, how much time are you spending on Facebook? And the average answer is about an hour or so a day. So if you think about that, that's an hour a day, 7 hours a week, 28 hours a month. The course of a year, 365 plus hours, maybe 400 hours that you're spending on Facebook. So you think about this enormous amount of time you're actually spending on Facebook, and you realize, okay, that my time is worth something. It's something of value, and if I'm not getting results from a business standpoint, there's a problem. So for me, at least, of course, you can use Facebook and continue to use Facebook on a personal level. I preach it all the time, but you have to actually be accountable for the time you're spending online, and that's really ultimately how you can get measurable results.
Okay. So let's keep going across this then. I'm sure some of these questions will get answered that some of the people are asking, and we'll definitely jump into them. I know what we've got kind of coming ahead. So going from our random acts of social media, Jimmy, I mean, what about being mediocre? There's a lot of that, isn't there?
There is, and I think this is unintentional, right? I think people are mediocre because they're confused, they're lost. They don't really know what they're actually what their goals are. They don't know what they want to accomplish. What I find a lot of is this term Tom Peters uses, which is called better sameness, in which we are just kind of looking at our competition and we're just doing what our competition is doing and just trying to do it a little bit better. And the problem is that our competition is doing it wrong. By and large, they're all pretty much mediocre. Where you'll see a page, you'll see a realtor's photo, you'll see a bunch of listings, everyone in the world saying how great you are, and nothing's happening. No interactions, no comments, no likes, no business. And it to me, Chad, I just think that we have such an awesome opportunity to do something really special and really inspiring and something that's actually worth talking about, but we're sort of blowing it here. And we're blowing it because I think we're confused. We don't really know where to begin. And obviously, that's really the intention of this, is that we want to get into all this. But, this is a great slide here. This is your comfort zone. Creating a page about, yourself and sharing listings is what we all really feel comfortable with. If you really want to get results, you got to get outside your comfort zone. As I was mentioning at the very beginning of this call, the first webinar I did, 4 people showed up. It was terrible. The audio problems were worse. I know we got some audio problems here going right now, but the audio problems were terrible. The content was terrible. There was an echo in my ear the entire time, and there was actually someone during the session who typed in, "This is bad," and it really crushed my ego during the session. But you know what? I learned from that experience, and I continue to do webinars, and they continue to be a great way for me to connect with everyone. And it was really uncomfortable for me to do it for the first time. So for us, I just want to advocate, let's do something exciting. Let's do something worth talking about. Let's stop copying our competition. Next slide I want to show you here.
Who should we copy then?
Oh, sure. Great. Thanks, Chad.
We're not going to copy her. You're good. We know that you're going to just keep going, and I just want to make sure you're telling us not to be mediocre. So I know that Zappos is, well, I mean, we all love Zappos, those of us who really know the company. You're saying that they do it right?
Yeah, Zappos is one of my favorite companies to follow. I really love them. They're just, everything they do is just excellence. They're really the definition of excellence. Zappos, an interesting fact, they don't really advertise. They don't really market themselves. They just provide an incredible customer experience. Deborah Trappin can tell you more about that, because me and her were talking about that a couple weeks ago, but it's just about the experience. Everything from every interaction, every sales call, every customer service call, every Facebook post, every interaction through Facebook, It is just about the experience for the consumer, providing value. So what I want you to do after this call is, or even during this call, make a note now, check out Zappos, see what they're doing, use them as inspiration for your own Facebook business page. Now, the last thing I'll mention about being mediocre is, if you don't think you're being mediocre right now, just go back and look at your Facebook business pages and look at your last 15 posts and ask yourself, of those 15, how many of them were actually promoting me, myself? And if a lot of them are, obviously I think you're making that mistake, and don't feel bad. A lot of us have made that mistake, including myself. But that's a way to sort of get a nice little gut check here and say, what's actually happening with your marketing.
Okay, so we're going to all go back after. We're going to evaluate our last 10 to 15 postings and make sure they're not majority of them promoting ourselves and actually doing something. And we'll learn from people like Zappos and you. I mean, I'm going to tell everybody, if you're not paying attention to what Jimmy's doing on Facebook, you're missing out, because he obviously practices what he preaches when it comes to it. Now, Jimmy, what about making every impression count and having kind of an inventory on our business here?
Yeah, this is actually this is one of those things that college has. It's really obvious, but we need to be reminded of it, because I make the same mistake myself. This is essentially, you right now have some impressions, whether online or offline, where you're whether it's your website, whether you're doing email marketing, whether you do print, or obviously every email you send, you're reaching out to consumers in all these different ways. So what we need to be thinking about is, how can we drive these impressions, this exposure we're getting offline and online, back to Facebook. So everything from the like box on your WordPress site, from if you have an active brand account, through Twitter, obviously, making sure you're linking people back to your Facebook business page on Twitter. You'll see me do that a lot, where I'll start a conversation on my page, and I'll share a link on Twitter, say, hey, join in on the discussion, and it'll link back to my Facebook business page. Advertising, both through Facebook ads, through Google AdWords, email marketing, print marketing, your business cards. Look at everywhere you're getting exposure, online and offline, and ask yourself, can you drive traffic back to your Facebook business page? So your email signature is a great example. Do you have facebook.com/your username in your email signature? One more example I'll share with you before we move to the next section here, Chad, is Stacy Harmon shared this really, really cool example. There's a realtor out there in California who wanted to market her Facebook business page. So what she did was get an actual mailer piece. And all that mailer piece was, hey, connect with me on Facebook. Here's what my page is about, and here's a URL. And she mailed it out to a couple thousand people. She got an incredible response. So this is, to me, is a great example of a non-traditional way you would promote your Facebook business page in a really old-school, direct mail kind of way, which is really, really cool. So just think about it. Think about ways you can drive people to your business page. Think about ways you can actually get more traffic coming in. It's really
so she
important.
went offline to get people to come join her online.
Yeah, exactly. Everything we do online or offline, we need to be thinking about connecting with people on Facebook, because it gives us the best opportunity to actually build a real relationship. One stat I'll give you before we move to the next slide, Chad, is the average time someone spends on a website is 56 seconds. Okay? The average time the user spends on Facebook is 8 hours a month. So think about that for a moment and say, do I want to drive to my website every single time, or do I have a better chance of converting that person into a real deal if I actually drive to my Facebook business page? Think about it.
Wow. That's a stat I'm going to see going across Twitter here probably in the next few minutes, I'm sure, Jimmy. So give them that stat one more time, because that was pretty amazing.
Sure. Yeah. The average time spent on a website is 56 seconds, and the average time spent by a user on Facebook is 8 hours per month.
Wow.
It's mind-blowing when you actually begin to think about it, honestly.
So it really becomes, you and I were talking before, and we'll talk about it again, it's no longer the should I be on Facebook, do I want to be on Facebook? I mean, you got to go where the people are.
Yeah. There's lots of people who really hate Facebook, and I get it. I get why people hate it. They say the streams are really boring. It's really mundane updates. We all have those friends who update, this is what I just ate. I just got out of the shower. I'm going to the gym. And you can block them really easily now, which is great. But, we let that distract us from the opportunities, Chad. We let that actually get in the way of what's really out there, which is the opportunity to connect with literally hundreds, thousands of consumers in a real way. So just keep that in mind.
All right. Now, Jimmy, you've got a tool here for everybody that they can use. Tell them about hubconnected.com.
Yeah, this is just actually, I want to give a plug to one of our one of the organizers here for the event. If you're looking to get into WordPress, if you don't have a WordPress blog right now, jump over to hubconnected.com. These guys do great work, again, from WordPress to help with social media, setting up your pages. I just want to give a quick plug to these guys because, again, they did a great job helping me organize this event.
All right, so hubconnected.com. Now, let's talk about broadcasting, as people are just screaming it from the rooftops and just broadcasting out information. What can you tell us about that, Jimmy?
Yeah, this would probably go back to the example of really the Bruce Swedell, and I can never go to the state of Colorado because I like insult this guy in every presentation. But Bruce, this idea of basically just going out there and telling everyone in the world you're the greatest realtor in the world, or just basically blasting messages out there with no concern whatsoever of actually starting a conversation. And for me, at least, for one of the things we really got to be thinking about is that people don't join social networking sites to be advertised to. They join social networking sites to make real connections and build real relationships. So we need to begin to think about ways in which we can actually do that and stop just broadcasting our message. So I want to share with you, a great quote here. This is from John Hayes, who is the CMO of American Express Open. He talks about essentially how we've gone from a monologue to a dialogue. And what he means by this is, in the past, brands, businesses could just simply advertise, right? If you advertise enough times and enough people see it, often enough, that can influence their decision. But now, because we all get information from each other, right? Because we log into Facebook, we log into Twitter, we read forums, we read review sites, we get information from each other, we no longer can broadcast our message. We have to be a part of that conversation. So, and that's really what John Hayes was saying here, essentially, is we need to basically be the enablers here, get people to stop lurking and actually begin to engage with us.
Well, Jimmy, I mean, we've only got a certain number of hours in a day, and you've already talked about putting 400 hours towards Facebook. And I mean, I know that might be some people's numbers. Your numbers are probably a little higher, and as are mine, as we're on it a lot. But what are some of those ways we can go about monitoring all of these social sites without sitting there and literally scrolling through everything on Facebook to see how we can take a monologue to a dialogue? What are some of those great tools we can use?
Yeah, there's a few of them that I really love. First, I'd recommend using search.twitter.com for searching your name, searching your Twitter handle, searching, again, your Facebook URL, anything that would be associated with you or your brand. Use that to monitor what's happening online to see if people are talking about you. Google Alerts, really, really simple. Set up a Google Alert right now if you haven't for your name, for your brand. And anytime someone actually mentions you in a blog post, a tweet, or a public Facebook post, you'll receive a notification. This is incredibly important because if someone's saying something terrible about you, you want to have the chance to respond. I can tell you how many times I've seen bad reviews of people, their services, their businesses, and the business doesn't respond. And the reality is that consumers don't immediately jump to a conclusion like, oh, this is a bad review, I'm immediately not going to use this company. They usually give people the benefit of the doubt. If they see a company responding, apologizing, trying to explain the situation, not really being defensive, but again, just participating in the discussion, they're going to be a lot more likely to actually use you. So we can't control people give us bad reviews. We all have crazy clients who probably hate us, and they're going to hate us forever anyways, no matter what we do. At least we can be a part of that conversation, engage, interact, and have a voice. Last service I want to mention is Topsy. And Topsy is, again, just allows you to scan both Facebook and Twitter. Really cool search tool that I recommend checking out.
Okay, so there's some great tools for everybody to be using to keep an eye on themselves. And it's one of the places where you can get away saying things like, so have you Googled yourself lately? And I highly recommend that everybody goes and Googles themselves. Yes. So, Jimmy, we go from some tools to watch to minding our manners. What do you mean by minding our manners?
This is one of the big things I really talk about all the time, which is with social media, if you really want to have success, if you want to stop wasting your time on social media, you really have to have the mindset where you have to build real relationships with people. It's not about anything else but really that, especially in the real estate business, is about real relationships. And one of my favorite quotes from Mark Twain was, he said, "I can live for 2 months on a good compliment." And you think about this. How many times are you thanking people? Are you showing your appreciation for people online? And to me, this basic idea of being thoughtful, caring, right? it's so fundamental to succeeding with social media because, it's everything, honestly. It's how you actually can connect with people and build real relationships. If you care enough and actually are thoughtful and you go out of your way to say thank you. One of the great ways I use these tools like search.twitter or Topsy or Google Alerts is if someone mentions me or my brand, I will actually make an effort to respond to virtually every single person who does this. For those of you who registered for the webinar today through our jimmymackin.net/webinar, there was about, I think, 125 comments before we logged in here. And let's just poll the audience here. If you go back, I responded to basically 120 of those people in that section there. And I'm fanatical about this because it really is that simple. If you're thoughtful, if you care, if you take the time to respond, people will really appreciate that. And they're much more likely to engage with you at a later point.
So how many of you got a thank you or a comment from Jimmy after you registered for this webinar? How many of you got that message? You even got warm and fuzzy. Good. Okay. So got some warm and fuzzy. Now, how many of you, and Rick, thank you. You're saying exactly what I'm saying. How many of you will engage with Jimmy more because he took that time and you know that he's real? He's a person out there. He sent you a message that next time Jimmy mentions something, you're more likely to click. You're more likely to engage. You're more likely to now pay attention to what he's got going on his page. And maybe now if you're looking for somebody who does what Jimmy offers as a service, you're more likely to recommend Jimmy to people. How many of you out there does Jimmy still owe a message to? Who are those 5 people that Jimmy didn't get to from some of you? So,
don't call me out like that, Chad.
I want to know who we got to make sure we follow up, and someone's got to hold you accountable too, Jimmy. So we are working our way through that. Now, there's someone other than you who does this really well. And that would be?
That would be Mari Smith. Mari Smith, if anybody who follows me knows how much I love Mari Smith. Her and I have really shared the same beliefs, which is essentially it's a mix of to succeed online, it's a mix of the hard skills and the soft skills. The skills of, being analytical, structuring a post, knowing the best time to post, but also the soft skills of being thoughtful, decent, caring. Now, Mari uses a great app. It's called, and I'm going to probably butcher this, it's called Bushka, I believe, or Bushka. It's a way you can showcase your fans' awesomeness. And so you have this link on Mari's page which says Mari's top fans. And again, it's just showcasing all the great people that are following Mari. And what she does, which is really cool, she'll go and actually profile these people. She'll give them shout-outs saying, hey, thanks Hubris for being a great fan, or thanks, this person for being a great fan. And she'll help promote them and thank them. To point back to Zappos again at the very beginning, Zappos has a fan of the week every week, in which they actually go in there and they showcase a fan photo every week. Now, we're not Zappos, we're not Mari Smith, but we still can actually do this on a much smaller scale, and we can still actually make that concerted effort, and people will really appreciate that. So check out Mari Smith if you haven't. Tweet to Mari Smith if you have right now. Tell her Jimmy Mackin loves her. She does a great job. And again, check out that app, Bushka, I believe it is, and I'm probably butchering it.
Well, I'm sure we'll find what the app is. We'll make sure we get it posted on your page later for people who are asking for it, or one of your many groups that you're running out there that people are looking for. So now, Jimmy, there's a lot of lurking going on in the world of Facebook.
Yes, yeah.
What are your feelings on lurkers?
Lurkers, for me, it wasn't too long ago where I had essentially no one in the world knew who I was. And for me, it was really, and I'm just going to be honest, it was really depressing when you work several hours on a post or a video and you share it and nobody would respond. And you would think to yourself for a moment, like, is anybody actually out there? And now I came across this post the other day, again from Mari Smith, another great thing Mari Smith shared, which basically illustrated that of the people who are currently online right now, 90% of them are lurkers, meaning that they're going to see what you're doing. They're going to see the content you're sharing. They're going to see, the videos, the posts, the photos, but they're not going to come out there and actually engage with you. They're not going to come out there and actually like or comment or share your post. So for me personally, one thing you got to be focusing on is that if you obsess over being responsive, if one person likes a post or comments, you respond every time. These lurkers will see that. They'll see you interacting. They'll see you making that effort, and that can help draw them out of the shadows and get them to actually engage with you. To me, absolutely essential. Focus on driving these guys out of the shadows and be responsive, and that's going to help you achieve that goal.
Now, I just want to go back, and it's Booshaka, because we're getting a few people asking that Jimmy was talking about for Mari here. It's Booshaka, and we'll send that message out to everybody as well for those of you who don't have it. That way you can get that. A lot of people are looking to figure out what that was. And lurkers, they're everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, you're going to find lurkers all over the place. And like Jimmy's saying, make sure you pull them out of that shadow and get them to engage. Now, Jimmy, we've got, well, someone's computer out there looks like this still. Now, maybe they didn't get on Facebook back when they had this computer, but they're probably not taking advantage of it. So what are your thoughts about over-posting and then, of course, under-posting?
Yeah, they're both deadly sins in my opinion. There's a I do a lot of one-on-one consulting as of those last couple of weeks here, just really quick reviews with people who are looking to improve their Facebook marketing. And one of the most common issues I see is no activity on their page. It's sort of this wasteland, right? Where there's just maybe one post and that's it. And what typically ends up being the problem is that people don't really know what to share. They don't know what to actually post on Facebook. And I want to share with you this really interesting graph that I came across this week. This is a study done by ComScore. And in this graph, what ComScore is showing you here is essentially for pages that update their Facebook page once a week, on average, you're reaching about 7% of your audience. So if you have 100 fans, you're reaching about 7 of those fans. Pages that update every day, 7 days a week, just once a day, are reaching nearly 3 times that amount, upwards of 21% of their fans. So the simple act of posting more frequently helps you reach more people. This is so obvious that I wouldn't even put in the presentation, but the fact is I think that we struggle to post every day because we don't know what to share. We don't know why we're sharing. We don't know why the page exists. And we'll dive into that in just a little bit here, but just keep this in mind. You want to be updating your page every day. Don't go too extreme where you're updating it like 10 times a day because it'll drive people crazy. But every day, one high-quality post, something of value, and stay consistent. Because again, your growth will accelerate. It took me from 0 to 100 fans. Took me like 90 days my first time I started my page. Now we grow by 100 fans a week. So just keep this in mind that if you're consistent, if you put forth the effort, your growth rate will accelerate, but you have to be consistent, and this just really illustrates that point.
So now I can get this graph, and I can share this with my spouse, and then that way when I'm on Facebook on Sunday, I can say, look, I have to post 7 days a week. So we'll make sure that you all have access to this. I think you posted this on your page yesterday for everybody to have a look at it, Jimmy. Now, what about some of the people that are doing it right? Again, you've got some favorites of yours out there. How do we go 7 days a week? What do we post about? What do we come up with? How do we keep going? You've got some great examples here.
Yeah, one of the ways to make it really simple for yourself is going back early, as I said, these random acts of social media, and I don't even know if I said this phrase, but randomness is the enemy of effectiveness. And this right here is a great example of what we call a theme day, which every Friday, example, they'll do fill in the blank Friday for American Express Open. And this is the same type of post every week. Now the content changes a little bit, but the structure is the same. For those of you online right now, check out Zillow, Zillow on Facebook. Taste Test Tuesday. Again, they do the same thing every Tuesday. If you put these systems in place where you establish a theme for a particular day, it doesn't mean that you have to be rigid and do it every single time. At least you have something that you can use that is effective and it actually works. So American Express opens the first one, 8 o'clock coffee, which I also recommend following. Great example of just, they do these giveaways, really, really smart marketing. Check these guys out. But again, it's just a basic structure, basic organization here that they're using that keeps them able to be active, honestly. So they don't have to think about it, and they don't have to worry about what they're going to post next week.
And they don't have to sit there and post up inspirational quotes as photos that just fill up my newsfeed all day long. They actually engage me.
Yeah, and that's really my point. Is that if you sit in front of your computer and you're looking at a blank screen, it's incredibly difficult for you to become inspired to share something of value right then and there. Especially if it's 7 in the morning, your deals are falling apart, your life's not going that great. It's not very easy, and I've been there. So we have to be thinking about putting these systems in place where you can actually, you actually can just follow your own sort of your own action plan here, for lack of a better word.
So, Jimmy, you just mentioned it's 7 a.m. in the morning. I'm going to post. My deals are falling apart. My world is horrible. What about using some syndication and third-party publishing tools then? Because then I can just set it up on Monday, and who cares if Thursday morning I slept in or my deals are falling apart? What are your feelings on some of those syndication and third-party tools that are out there?
Well, before I start trash talking syndication tools and third-party publishing tools, there are a few out there that are what we call whitelisted, which should be fine. They shouldn't cause you to have any problems. So if you have like a content management like tool, like maybe Roost or Social Made Simple, usually these tools are fine. What I'm referring to when I refer to syndication and third-party publishing tools is I'm talking about Hootsuite, Twitter, publishing through Foursquares, publishing through RSS graffiti or network blogs, essentially blasting out, or as we say, broadcasting your status updates to whatever social networking sites out there. It is the complete opposite of what you should do, because if you don't actually take the time to share something and tell people why you shared it and what's of value, then they're not going to take the time to respond to you. So this is just a quick little chart here we have of the impact these things have on your engagement rate. So, when you think about these things as an isolated incident, like, okay, well, that's not really that big of a difference, 70%, even though it really is. But, if you start to add these things up, you start to realize, okay, well, this stuff, these little small details, they matter a lot. And this one right here is, if you're going to use syndication tools, well, actually, let me back up here. Don't use syndication tools, really, in any way, shape, or form. They just kill any chance you have at engaging with people. They kill any chance you have at building real relationships.
So that kind of just summed it up. I don't think we need to even say any more about that. Usually on a lot of these webinars, Jimmy's giving you ideas. He's giving you suggestions. You just kind of flat out said, don't do it.
Yeah, it's not me really going on a limb. I've been trash talking these tools for like a year now, but it's just so against everything I believe, which is if we want to get business, we have to build real relationships. So, and no, I'm not saying don't use tools like Roost, just as I preface that. I saw somebody say in the comment. I'm saying there's certain tools that are whitelisted, but don't just syndicate your content through like RSS graffiti or Twitter or network blog. Really take the time to actually post and provide something of value.
Okay, so now a lot of people are out there and they're posting, and Jimmy, all they're hoping for is that they can be the person that stands up and says, I got 7,000 likes on this post. I must be a super realtor or super whatever it is they're doing. What are your feelings on people obsessed with the like?
And I want you to jump over to the next slide here. This is something I came across a couple weeks ago. This is a site called Fiverr. Now, Fiverr, you can actually buy fans. You can, for $5, and I hope no one does this, you can go online, you can buy people from the U.S., from the U.K., people that actually like your page for $5. And a guy brought this up to me during a session that I was doing here in Massachusetts, and I immediately saw, like, this is basically everything that's wrong with social media right now, which is we obsess over likes because somehow in our minds we have equated that likes equal deals. That if we get to a certain number, this magic number as I call it, like 10,000 likes, all of a sudden we're going to begin to get immediate referrals and business flowing in that more than we can handle. And the reality is it's complete nonsense. It's terrible. It's horrible advice. We need to be focusing on making real connections with real people, and that's it. So these likes, getting likes, don't even look at it honestly. Like this big scoreboard you see when you log into Facebook, it doesn't matter. What matters is the real relationships. So and what's funny here, and what's interesting at least to me, is if you focus on these things, like if you don't care about likes, you realize all of a sudden you begin to get a lot more, and people begin to follow you, and it's natural, it's organic, it's real, and to me, that's just what we really need to be focusing on.
Okay, so this screen that we've left up there wasn't so that you could copy it down. It was a not-to-do suggestion. So hopefully you didn't take too many notes on that one and you've deleted that already from your head. It's better to have a few likes that are genuine likes than a whole bunch of likes that mean nothing.
That's it. Absolutely.
All right, so Jimmy, how about using our gut?
Yeah, this is and it's going to kill me because I can't remember his name. I think his name's Duncan Watts. He's the chief scientist for Yahoo Research, and I may be getting his name wrong, but I'll get it afterwards and send it out to everyone. He analyzes data for Yahoo and sees what people actually do online. And one of the problems we have right now is we sort of assume we know how people are going to react when we do things. And the reality is that virtually in every single case, we're wrong. And it's not like we make a big, it's a big mistake. It's just usually we're wrong, and we just can't really predict how people are going to act. They just act differently. So what I want everyone here to do is begin to look at your Facebook Insights. Now, I wrote a post about this on Inman Next, I think it was 2 days ago, on Facebook Insights. You can actually use your insights to see what's resonating with your fans. So let me give you a few ideas here. Number one, you can sort your posts by the most engaged users. So if you can see in the bottom of this chart here, you can click on engaged users and it'll sort them from high to low. You can look at which posts actually get the most amount of engaged users, people who are actually viewing it, liking, commenting. Again, all we're doing really simply saying, let's say we have 30 posts we're analyzing. Well, the top 5, let's do more of that. The bottom 5, let's do less of that. To give you a little bit of insight, my top 10 posts are all photos. My bottom 10 posts are all links. Now, yes, the links drive traffic to to websites that I want to drive traffic to, but if I want people to engage, we'll share more photos. It's pretty obvious. But again, you want to be constantly monitoring these things, because what it's going to allow you to do is develop a rich profile of what your fans deeply care about, what really resonates with them. And you don't have to guess. It's there right there for you. So check out that Inman Next post. We'll link to it afterwards. But absolutely hover over your, obsess over your insights and see what's really engaging with these people.
Now, this is one of the reasons to have a page, not a personal profile for this stuff, because you cannot do this off your personal profile. This is off a page.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's most people fail at having a page. And we'll talk about that later, Chad. But yes, start a page and just focus on actually getting a page out there. I know it's easier to have a personal profile. It's easier to make personal connections. But trust me, there's a lot of advantages to having a page, and you want to make sure you have one set up.
So then comes the big question of, why does your page exist?
Yeah, this is again another fundamental question that we need to be answering, or we need to be asking ourselves before we even launch a page, which is what is the theme of your page? Why does it exist? Why should anybody like it, right? This is so fundamental, and but it's so important, because here's why. If you, for example, say my page is about, let's say, Ledyard, Connecticut, which is a great page by Linda Davis, which you should check out. That's Ledyard, Connecticut. If your page's theme is clearly defined, then everything you do online, everything you do on Facebook, reinforces that theme. So every piece of content Linda shares is about Ledyard, Connecticut. It's about the community, what's happening, lifestyle, different events, different businesses. If your page's theme is not clearly defined, if it's fuzzy, if you're just doing these random acts of social media like Bruce, and you're just posting random things, then it's impossible for the average person to land on your page and know what your page is about. So, there's many different ways you can succeed on Facebook, many different types of themes that you can really work for you. The bottom line is it has to be clear. It has to be easy to identify, and people have to be able to recognize that when they first land on your page. A great example of this is Mission Bicycle, and you can see the URL here on the slide. I love these guys. They really do an amazing job. Their page is about single-speed bikes. They build custom bikes. It's about the lifestyle of owning a bike. They share things about accessories, tips on maintaining, and obviously beautiful photos of their product. Just look at this page when you get a chance after this call. See what they're doing, and use this as inspiration for your own page. But again, bottom line, clearly define your theme, write it down, and that's going to reinforce everything that you do online on your Facebook page.
Okay, so now, Jimmy, there's a lot of people out there who have to think it through first. They're going to want to think it over. They're going to think about it. Then once they've thought about it, they're going to think about it a little bit more. What are your feelings on that over planning and overthinking yourself into something?
Yeah, there's this one's going to be really short, guys. You got to ship. We're at the point right now where you have to get something out there. There's no such thing as perfection online. You're always going to have the opportunity to tweak it later. You have to get in there and start doing something. I find a lot of people make the same mistake where they come up with these master grand plans, and the problem is that when you get out there and actually do it, you realize all of your plans are probably outdated or wrong, and then you have to readjust anyways, and then you're back to square one. So a great book I want to recommend for you is called Poke the Box by Seth Godin, and talks about this idea of we can go to the next slide there, Chad, thanks. It talks about this idea of basically shipping. getting your product out there, getting your marketing plan in real life out there for everyone to see. We got to ship. So if you're at the point right now where you're obsessing over perfection, obsessing over one little detail, don't. Just ship. And one last thing I'll mention about this, and I want to make sure we leave time here at the end for questions. One last thing I'll mention about this is the story of Friendster, the social networking site, which no one belongs to really that I know of. They were on a meteoric rise to dominate every other social networking site out there. The problem was they had one little feature that the CEO did not want to get rid of. He wanted to perfect this feature, and if he perfected that feature, he felt like everybody would love it. The problem is that one little feature, it was meaningless. It was absolutely meaningless. So what ended up happening is that the company was plagued with just blackouts and plagued with just problems with the users, and it left the door wide open for companies like MySpace and Facebook to come in and dominate. And his obsession with one feature, one product that prevented them from shipping and moving forward is why no one's joining Friendster right now, in the U.S. at least. And that's why Facebook is as successful as it is, because if Friendster didn't do this, there probably wouldn't be a Facebook, honestly. So just keep that in mind.
Interesting. Now, I want to put the pressure on the audience for a minute here, Jimmy. I'm doing a lot of the clicking. You're doing a lot of the talking. They're sitting back taking notes, or at least being able to say to their friends, well, I was on Jimmy's webinar, so of course I'm a success on Facebook now. I want to poll everybody out there and ask you to type in for me. Might be a little bit of a leading question here, but it's on your screen. Is generating leads online with Facebook important to you? Let me know yes or no. Now, some people might say it's not important to them. Maybe they just want to farm all day long. But, Jimmy, my screen is blowing up with yeses. I think I saw one no go by. So someone's not necessarily worried about generating leads on it, but everyone else is yes. So let me ask you a follow-up question to that before I go back to Jimmy on this for everybody. Do you actually have a lead capture form on your Facebook page? Do you have a lead capture form on your Facebook page? I got a yes. I saw 3 yeses so far go by, Jimmy. Otherwise, I'm seeing a lot of no's going by on here. So, Jimmy, tell me a little bit about, people just liking my page and thinking I'm generating leads like you've been talking about. And then let's talk about lead capture and how we actually can do it on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. We all run our own businesses or part of a business, a small business, and at the end of the day, it does come down to leads. It comes down to actually taking a connection you make online and pushing that to a real interaction. But you have to have lead capture forms. This is a typical example of what I see online, which is a welcome page, which tells the user to like them, but there's no way for that person to enter in more information to get to that lead. And the problem with this is that we know, statistically speaking, that we're only reaching between 3 and 7% of our fan base. We know, statistically speaking, that 96% of our fans, after they like our page, never come back to our business pages. So that's what inspired us to develop our application, which is the lead conversion app. And it was a really simple premise, which is if you're going to have a Facebook business page, if you're going to actually be marketing yourself online, you have to have a way for people to actually contact you and reach out to you. And then all we did with this application was, allow it so it can be customized with a video, allow where people can actually, their information is pre-filled in with a Facebook registration form. And it's incredibly simple and incredibly effective. For us to kind of give you an idea, we generated roughly about 560 leads in the last 6 weeks. And I'm not saying your numbers will be anything like that, but whatever it is you do with your business page, whatever your objective is, install some lead capture mechanism there, because if you don't have it there, you have zero possibility of getting a lead. And I would really discourage anybody from trying to link people over to the website and say, hey, try to drive them to a contact form, because that just honestly, you lose so much business to people falling off and going in different directions. So make it simple and incorporate some lead capture mechanism. Okay, now Jimmy, you and I might give you a hard time at the beginning of every one of our calls about what's going on in the Red Sox nation or what's going on out there, but you and I do agree on one thing, I think, and that's, that this is a perfect image as Tony Romo drops the ball, fumbling on the 1-yard line, though. What are we talking about as we get to share this wonderful, beautiful image and leave this on the screen for a bit? What are we talking about when we're talking about fumbling on that 1-yard line? What I'm referring to in this is, and I'm trying to think of the perfect way to explain this, is that, and I thought of Tony Romo and how he basically botches every game, and I thought to myself, we could do all these things. We can have a clearly defined theme. We could have great content we want to share. We can have beautiful photos and videos, and we can have lead capture forms. But when it comes down to the moment in which we actually post something on Facebook, we usually just drop the ball. We usually it's sort of an afterthought. And what I believe is that how you share content on Facebook is as important as what you share on Facebook. So just to explain myself just a little bit here, what I'm saying is that the thought process of, okay, how am I going to actually ask this question? How am I, is this really direct? Is it concise? Is there a clear call to action? This is an example here of the Longhorns, which are saying, hey, the game's tomorrow, fill in the blank, and they're showing an example and a ton of interactions. So they could have gone the opposite direction. They could have just shared a link to more information about the game. That's what most people do. Rather, what they did is they started a discussion around the game. And that last little bit of actually focusing on how you're posting and the context and the format and all of that is so incredibly important, and that is what fuels conversations. It really can ignite a conversation. And I see this, and I've studied this stuff for some time now, and I see this as a big mistake. We have this excellent piece of content, and we just sort of drop the ball. So sweat the details, think about the little things here, and think about how you're structuring these posts. So just one little homework assignment here from the call. Look at your last 10 posts on your Facebook page. Did you properly structure these posts, or are they just sort of links that you're sharing out? Just something to consider.
Okay, and then we brought the Longhorns here just in case we upset anybody on the Dallas Cowboys image, of course. So just wanted to make nice with everybody on that because I know we got some people out there. So let's talk about this amazing 7 awesome Facebook pages. Jimmy, tell everybody quickly about this.
Yeah, real quickly. I profiled, I just posted on my wall, I profiled a bunch of pages, well 7 pages actually to be exact, but I give a bunch of examples of how they engage their audience. And what you find, and which is really fascinating to me, is the same type of format, the same types of questions get engagement across many different types of pages. So things that work for American Express will also work for the Longhorns, or things that work for Buffalo Wild Wings will work for Zappos, or things that work for Mission Bicycle, and so on and so forth. So check out that guide. I'll send you the link to it if you want it, and it gives you some really good ideas on how to actually engage people on Facebook.
Okay, now Jimmy, people, specifically real estate agents, suffer from SOS. And SOS is the shiny object syndrome. Tell us a little bit about the squirrel running across our screen, the shiny object syndrome that we just can't deal with, and we're always distracted by. What can we do to help?
Well, to me at least, it's one of the things that plagues our industry, and I'm as guilty as anybody about this. And I just want to emphasize that I've made all these mistakes myself, just so everyone knows here. This idea essentially that we're in pursuit of this magic tool out there that's going to solve all of our problems, and this tool that is essentially has the great features. It's going to help us automatically generate business, and whether that's Empire Avenue, Quora, or even the latest shiny object, Google Plus, which I love. The problem is that if we obsess over these tools, the latest and the greatest, and we don't actually take a moment and say, okay, what about the stuff that I already have? And why is not working for me? And what you begin to realize essentially is that these are simply tools, and these are not marketing strategies. You have to make these things work for you. So for me at least, what I think that we need to be focusing on is before you do anything online, before you join another social networking site, whatever that's going to be, look at your Facebook page, look at your blog, look at your website, find out what's not working and fix it. And that to me is the most important thing. And no other technology is going to help solve that problem.
So what about some people who aren't paying attention to what's going on out there?
Yeah, this is my sort of wrapping up here before we dive into questions. Not embracing change. This is a stock price of Netflix and Blockbuster. And what's really interesting about this to me is that there's so many people who are so resistant to change. And I think that was best illustrated when we had the recent changes with Facebook. Everyone started complaining and saying how much they hate it. And what we need to do as marketers and to be successful in business is we need to be focusing on embracing change, embracing technology. And if I told you 15 years ago or 20 years ago for that matter, hey, or no, 15 years ago, if I told you 15 years ago you should start a website, you should double down on your marketing efforts on the web, you should, buy these domains, get out there and start building your presence, you would have called me crazy. You would have said you're insane. Well, I'm telling you right now, you need to double down on Facebook. You need to double down on social media. Those who don't are going to miss out. I think a great quote that Scott Shanks shared with me before the session is, if you don't like change, you're not going to like, or you're going to like irrelevance even less. And that pretty much sums it up, is that we have to adjust. We have to actually just embrace these things, because ultimately, if we don't, it's going to be our own demise.
And I think I'm able to quote you earlier where you said where the customers are going is where you need to be. So we need to make sure that we all know that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually, to me, it's that simple. There's close to, now we're approaching about 1 billion people on Facebook, spending an incredible amount of time there. Our customers are there, whether we like it or not. It's really where we have to be as marketers.
Wow, 1 billion people. That's just amazing. All right, so let's talk, Jimmy. Let's just give them a quick, for everybody who's out there, if you're looking for some one-on-one training on Facebook, they can contact you on your page. If they want to learn more about the conversion app that you were talking about as a way to capture leads, because if you're not capturing them, your time's not worth any money to yourself, because you're just letting them all go by and hoping. You can check out leadconversionapp.com. And then Jimmy mentioned earlier, hubconnected.com was one. So is there anything you want to add to that, Jimmy, before I go on and open this up and see what questions the audience has? Because I know that they're all sitting there chomping at the bit wanting to ask you something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm ready to take some Q&A. I love doing the Q&A.
All right, so there we go. Let's jump to the Q&A now. Now I'm going to let you know that we've got a few moments. I know I can probably twist Jimmy's arm to hang on a little bit longer. If you don't get a question answered or there's something you really want to know, that's one of the great things about Jimmy. Just go post it on his wall, ask him the question, he'll be there. Jimmy, I've seen this question go by a few people. You talked about now we should be posting 7 days a week. That's what the numbers are showing. We're going to get the best results posting 7 days a week. What about the best time? Should we be posting at the exact same time? Should I be a 9 a.m.er every day of the week? Should I change times? Are there certain times of the day that are better to post and times of the day that I shouldn't be posting?
It's an excellent question. I think Mary asked that question, and I'm glad she did. A really interesting stat I saw recently was 86% of brands publish content between Monday through Friday, and only 14% on the weekend. So the first thing is, in terms of time of the day, we can talk about that in a little more detail, but think about the weekends. Weekends are wide open, huge opportunity, because there's just not a lot of activity happening, yet the users, the Facebook users, are just as active. Secondly, what I'll say about this is, early morning, before people go to work, after work, in the evening time. Again, the 9 to 5 hours are pretty cluttered with other brands publishing content because they're run by employees. Go outside the normal business hours and take advantage of those times. Some of my most engaging posts are at like 11 o'clock at night, or 12 or midnight sometimes on the East Coast here. Lots of engagement, people just staying up late working. Really a great opportunity there. What I would recommend doing, Mary, is test yourself. Through Facebook Insights, you can actually look at your most engaging posts, and you can see a timestamp and say, okay, of my top 5 posts, what time of the day did I actually post it? Write that information down and use that, the next time around when you're posting.
Okay, Camille has a question here. Oh, just scroll by on me. I want to go back. It says, oh, here it is again. Perfect. How is a Facebook page different from a blog, Jimmy? Can't I just use my Facebook business page like a blog with my postings? Why should I have a blog and a Facebook page?
Well, the average shelf life, it's a great question, Camille. The average shelf life of a Facebook post is about 3.2 hours, whereas blog posts can be indexed and searched for literally years, decades almost now. I would think about, using Facebook as a great way to stay connected and engage with people on a regular basis. And your blog can be just a great hub for content that is timeless, like tips on buying a house or selling a house. And again, the advantage to a blog, another advantage to a blog is that the content you create and share is then crawled by Google's bots. It's indexed. It can be searched, and you can drive in traffic to search engines. So use both. They're not mutually exclusive. I wouldn't say one is superior to the other, even though I'm in favor of Facebook. I would use both, and I would use both effectively because they do serve two different purposes.
It's a great way to have a question on Facebook that then drives back to a blog posting that maybe answers that question as well once you get a bunch of people engaging in a simple blog post or a Facebook posting on it. So, Jimmy, we did a webinar, you and Chris Smith and myself, we did one about the new changes on Facebook, and we've kind of been playing with it for a little bit now since we did that intro webinar. Scott's asking here, he says, are the new changes on Facebook actually making a difference in engagement?
Yeah, yes, they are, Scott. It's really interesting because I saw a study recently that the impressions counts for the average page is down about 20%, but the engagements, the likes and comments, is up about the same amount, 15 to 20% recently. And what we're seeing is because there is now essentially, two news feeds got consolidated into one, and now we have the ticker on the right-hand side. We're seeing less content in the news feed, and as a result, because we don't have this huge wave of information flowing at us, we're able to sort of carefully, see what's happening. It's just easier for us to engage because there's not so much happening. We're not swapping between most recent top news. So there's been a spike in engagement, and there's been a drop in impressions. And as Chris and I said during the last session, this has become, now it's become increasingly more important to provide awesome content that solves people's problems.
Okay, and Jimmy, I'm going to hit you with one more question just before we hit the timeline here on this webinar today. And Megan's asked, she says, would you suggest using groups more than Facebook pages? What are the differences, in your opinion, between having a page and a group? Because you run a fantastic group with a lot of people involved. You also have a great page.
Yeah, it's they serve two different purposes. I wouldn't, in a lot of cases, Megan, it's not mutually exclusive. So you can have a group, you can have a page, you can have a profile, and you can have a blog. The difference with groups is everyone has skin in the game, in the sense that everyone has a sense of ownership over the group. You really don't control the group. You may have started it, you may have moderated it, but you really don't control it. And ultimately, from a brand's perspective, I know if I started sharing, hey, check out my webinars, or hey, buy my products in the tech support group, there would be a mass exodus from it. So groups are great in the sense that you can build real connections, which is obviously incredibly important. Pages, on the other hand, I think are a more effective way to actually market your business, not sharing your listings, but doing so in a really smart way by providing something of value. So they serve two different purposes, but they both can be used effectively.
All right, so Jimmy, that's a lot of questions, and there are a lot more that are still coming. I'm going to, again, recommend to everybody, Jimmy's page is a great way to get a hold of him. It's really easy to find. He's Jimmy Mackin right there on Facebook, facebook.com/Jimmy Mackin. You'll want to go post some questions there. Jimmy, as we already know, he insists on staying there and making sure he gets questions answered, responds to you. Once again, I want to thank Jimmy. He taught me earlier in this class alone, I have to mind my manners. So I want to make sure I remember to say thank you, Jimmy, for bringing all this information to the rest of us. I might get to be here walking you through some of it, and maybe I get a sneak peek to know what's coming next, yet I take as much away from this as I'm sure everybody else did. So on behalf of everybody that did join us for today's webinar, I want to say thank you, and we'll be watching for the next one that you'll be hosting coming up soon. Do you have any last parting thoughts you want to say to everybody just before they get off the call?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I know it's sort of an odd time here, 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday. Thanks for joining me. Again, if you want to connect, I'm on Facebook. Post on my wall, and I'll be sure to respond.
All right. With that being said, I'm sending the link out to everybody. If you don't know how to find Jimmy, now you do. We will look forward to hearing from you all soon. And come join on Jimmy's wall. Help answer any questions that do get posted. Engage with us. We'll look forward to speaking to you all in the next webinar. Have a fantastic day.